What makes me excited most about Boston is the people on the course.
I mean, I've been out there on race day and on other race days just out there cheering, and it's, I mean, the last 6-7 miles, it's just packed. Like, it's crazy.
Boston is like the reason why I wanted to run marathons, because my aunt actually ran the Boston Marathon and we all came to watch her, and we're super close with her. I technically bandited the Boston Marathon when I was like 14 years old, because I just like jumped in and ran with my aunt for the last 10 miles.
That's like the aura that comes with the race. It's just like the mecca of marathons to run, so being able to have an opportunity to come here and race with one of the deepest fields that they've ever had is really a privilege.
It's something different about Boston. The whole city embraces it, and it just becomes the city for a day.
Virtually every part of the course has people lining the course from the start to the finish. It's unreal, and there are a few spots, namely Heartbreak Hill, and of course near the finish, and there's some other areas in like Wellesley around the 15-mile mark where it is 5-6 people deep, and the sound is deafening in terms of the crowd when you run by them, and that really can carry you along as an athlete, even if you're feeling like crap. We are here at the 126th edition of the Boston Marathon, the world's oldest marathon. Our ZAP team has 3 athletes towing the line tomorrow morning, and they are Andrew Colley. And Andrew, if I'm speaking objectively, is healthy for the very first time in 2+ years. He ran 2:12 for the marathon in 2019 at Grandma's in Duluth, Minnesota. And he's fit enough that if he executes the right way, he'll run faster than that tomorrow. Josh Izewski. Josh coming off of a PR marathon at Houston Marathon just a few months ago, running 2:12 there. He is very fit, dealing with a little bit of a knee tweak right now that we hope is not an issue tomorrow, but he's in great shape. And then Joanna Thompson, who's been on the team for 7 years and ran her personal best just back in November at the New York Marathon on a tough course. New York's a tougher course. She ran 2 hours and 39 minutes at New York, and she's 5% fitter than she was at New York for this weekend. So really the overarching goal for Joanna is first and foremost to get her Olympic trials qualifier, which would be under 2 hours and 37 minutes, which would be a trials qualifier and a PR, of course. So that's where we are with those 3.
Training coming into the race has been going pretty well. We were out in Colorado for a while and got some good altitude training, and looking forward to feeling the benefits of that.
This time around, going later in the training block, right before the race, we had already done some more specific work, some more miles before going, so everything just felt better. Once we got there, I felt stronger. The miles weren't as fatiguing when I was there, just I think by definition of being there later in the training block. So that's fun. It's more fun when you feel good at altitude.
I'd say the training block was not perfect. I had a little hiccup with my knee. Thankfully I was able to get that rehabbed pretty quickly, and it turned out to only be a minor bump in the training. Got to make it up to Colorado Springs and was able to train with the team for like 2.5 weeks out there. So that was really awesome, both from an energy and from like a physiology perspective. And yeah, I'm excited to see that work pay off tomorrow.
So Houston was 13 weeks ago, and since it's the 3rd marathon in the last 8 months, we just did a little bit different than a normal marathon build-up. We did a little shorter, quicker stuff on the front end before getting into more marathon-specific work in Colorado. Coming into the build-up, I had a little tweak going on in one leg coming off of Houston. Got better for about 5-6 weeks, and then transferred over to another part and then to another part. So, you know, just normal training tweaks here and there. But things are feeling good now and ready to toe the line tomorrow and run 26 miles into Boston. Yeah.
So the build-up for Boston, I mean, the first, few weeks of the build-up went really well. I was feeling good. Workouts were going well, and then kind of all of a sudden I just started not being able to work out with Andrew and Josh, and just, we'd get a couple minutes into the workout and I'd just be falling off. And, maybe I was just like, okay, at first it was just, I'm maybe a little tired. So, after another week or two, then it was like, okay, bad workouts, like, okay, something's wrong. And eventually I got a COVID not PCR, but antibodies test, and found out that at some point about 3 or so weeks before I had COVID. So I was just having some residual effects on the lungs and energy levels. So we decided that the best course of action was to not run Boston and not do any further damage to my body.
In Colorado Springs, I felt like training was going smoothly, but with the altitude conversion for each, workout, obviously we're running slower paces, so I wanted to believe that I was in a good spot. But I didn't have a lot of benchmarks to compare like I would at sea level. So it's kind of nice to go off a feel and not overanalyze the paces, but I wasn't 100% sure.
When we went earlier in the year, it was my first time ever altitude training, and I think I took it a little bit harder than I did this time. I think coming in this time, I was, more prepared with hydrating and making sure I was getting enough rest and enough sleep, whereas the first time it was kind of just like this brand new thing. And so I think I was just better physically and mentally prepared coming into altitude training this time. And I think, from seeing the race results after that really proves to me that altitude does work for me and does work for us as a team.
So today, did running in strides, back to the hotel and got some lunch, got worked on by assistant coach Ryan, and then immediately had to go and get my uniform checked, my shoes checked, make sure everything's legal, all the logos are right, and then go and get my bottles turned in for fluids on the race course. And that consists of basically going to a table with a bunch of other adults and having arts and crafts time on the water bottles you bring, and putting tape on it so you know which one's yours.
I have 8 bottles, and over those 8 bottles I have 960 calories. So I'm gonna eat half a day's worth of food tomorrow in 2 hours.
We got to run with some of our ZAP campers and ZAP friends this morning down on the Charles, get a little shakeout in. Usually consists of 4 to 5 miles of running, and then throw some strides on the end to just feel good going into tomorrow.
I mean, a successful day could be a bunch of things. It could be, finishing high. It could be a fast time. Getting through the race and not being injured is a successful day, knowing where I am right now.
Well, I already kind of consider it a successful day because I've gotten to the race healthy, which is really hard for me.
I think if I walk away from tomorrow with a trials qualifier, I'll be happy.
I would like to just really compete hard and get to the end knowing that I used everything I could and that I was finishing strong.
So if I can make it just feel super light and relaxed and natural through that first slightly downhill 16-mile portion, and then really come out swinging on those hills, then I think that'll be a really good race for me and a really good race setup for me.
All right. So he said to go here. This is Irving, right? It's not an overpass. He just said that because we have they might let us through. They might let you through. They might not.
Yeah, the crazy thing is getting, because I'm like, if we can get to the next, like the next stop, we can get across at the next stop.
Yeah, I mean, any way we slice it, we've got to get to the other side of the course.
Yeah, yeah. If there was a way.
What? Yes?
They are gonna let him.
Just pull right over and pull around where he is. Thank you. Go, 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 go.
There'll be a pretty big gap probably soon. All right.
Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, roughly 23 minutes.
They're 23 minutes in, so we'll be here in 12 minutes?
Yeah. What?
We're here at the 7-mile marker, and we're waiting for the men, for Josh and Andrew, to come by our first stop on the course. Beautiful day, and the crowds are awesome, and at this point the coaching is done. We get to be spectators.
We ended up like about a mile down farther than where we were expecting to, but
Nice and contained, keep it relaxed. You look good, Josh. Next few miles, ease toward those guys. Josh and Andrew just came by at 7 miles. They both look good. It's early in the race, and now we're waiting on Joanna to come by in a couple minutes.
Good work.
Locked in, Joanna! Run your race!
all right. We'll go ahead and jump in and we can pick him up.
Yeah.
Dude, we're running our own race here. His split from 10 to 15K was 5:35 pace. Yeah, I mean, so we just left the 7-mile mark. Josh looks like his knee might be bothering him a little bit. But he's still in, I mean, his last 5K was a little slower, so. And he looked like he might have been having a little bit of a problem when he came by us. Andrew looked really good coming through 7 miles. And so did Joanna. So we're heading over towards like 16-ish is our next stop. So kind of following him on the tracker between now and then.
We're headed from mile 7 mark to the 16-mile mark with our awesome driver, Ellie, a Malden, Massachusetts native. But anyway, we're gonna skirt our way up to the 16-mile mark and do some yelling and then make our final stop toward the finish. Not sure if we'll actually make it to the finish in time for the athletes, for Andrew anyway. But yeah, that's what we're doing, and exciting day on Marathon Monday in Boston.
So we can hang out right here, and then
I'll just sit right on this corner.
and then the next address is going to be, it's going to be close anyway. We can give you some specifics. It's 210 Marlborough Street. Probably not.
That's a ton.
Yeah. I think they were still faster than him minutes from.
So 16 minutes plus the differential in the start time, 24 minutes.
So 24 minutes.
If we leave here 24 minutes after Andrew reaches the 16-mile mark, we are not getting to the finish.
All right, Colley. All right, here you go. You're gonna have some people to run down out there.
It's worked out all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're driving now from 16 to the finish, and Andrew is still running well. Unfortunately, he's pretty much by himself, trying to catch a group of the lead American runners. But marathon doesn't really start until 16 miles anyway in many ways. That's when things go really well or poorly, and we're hoping for the former for him. And it appears that Josh must have had a flare-up with his knee issue. He did not make it to 20 kilometers, so clearly he's dropped out of the race.
So Joanna was 1:19:57 at halfway. Let's see. Probably getting close to the top of Heartbreak Hill.
Yeah.
They're probably cresting out about right now, I would guess. And then start the downhill. So we'll see if we can make it roll the last 6 miles.
Wow, the temperature difference here.
It's just that way.
Today was a good reminder that the marathon can be very humbling, not a Not the day any of the athletes wanted out there today. Everybody spent a little bit of time in the medical tent, which is always a challenge, when your body doesn't cooperate on the day. Josh came in to the race kind of dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, and it kind of got a little worse as the race went on. Coming in, the hope was maybe things will loosen up as he gets warm and feel a little bit better. And he was feeling, I think, okay through about 10K, and then he started having some sharp pain in the knee and managed it a little bit, but ended up stepping off the course, I think, just before the halfway mark. Stepping off the race course is always a difficult decision that nobody wants to make, and in some cases it's the right one, and I think, certainly that was the case today, probably across the board, but for him, just not letting that become something worse than what it was. And he got it looked at after the race, and, it seems like it's upset and irritated, and but I don't think he did any more damage to it than he had done. So we'll get that checked out when we get back home. As far as, Andrew, I think, stepped off the course right around 20 miles, started having issues with losing the feeling in his extremities, vision issues, and it was odd. He was feeling really good through the early stages of the race, and even up until, I think, when he started feeling bad, he started feeling really bad, and so he got checked out in the medical tent afterwards as well, and we'll have to do some follow-up stuff, I think, with the doctors when we get back home. He's feeling okay, but that's a disappointing day when your body doesn't cooperate and you feel like, the fitness was there and the training was good. But I think for all of them, we'll bounce back better. They all put in good training blocks. They all kind of took some steps forward with their fitness, and so I think the really positive thing coming out of it is, hey, the last 3 months have gone well. Unfortunately, things didn't cooperate to be able to show that today, the way that anybody would have wanted to. But it's still, all of that is something that we can build on for whatever's next. And so I know that they're, I just feel bad for them, because you work so hard, and it's I think the hardest part about this event, the marathon, is you put a lot into one day, and it takes, everything, everything that you've got to compete at this distance. And when it's not a good day, or, the body doesn't cooperate, whatever it is, it's still like, takes some time to recover from, and you can't turn around 2 weeks later and do it again, because it didn't go well, which with some shorter distances you can. And I think it's one of the toughest parts about this for the athletes is, like, you've got to kind of take a little bit of rest and get back at it, and you just don't have, those opportunities don't come around that often, at the marathon distance. But they'll be back, and I know that they'll be better going forward from this for sure. So.
So going into Rotterdam, I knew I was in a really good place fitness-wise. A lot of the workouts had just been going really well, and even being in altitude, it was kind of weird because the times we were running weren't really the times we were aiming for because we were at such high altitude. So like looking down at the watch or whatever, it would be a little bit slower than what race pace was. But then once we got to the race, like at sea level, that pace felt so much easier. So yeah, I knew it was gonna be a good one going in, but I didn't know how much I was gonna actually get a PR by, but I just felt really good. So this race was kind of strange because I've never run in a different country before, and the time zone, it was, I think, from Colorado Springs to Rotterdam, I think it was about 7 hours difference, which was hard because we flew overnight. So that night I didn't get very much sleep on the plane, and then coming in, we tried to get some good rest the next couple nights, but actually the night before the race, I probably only got a total of like 2 hours maybe of sleep, which has never happened to me before. So the jet lag definitely got to me, and I was a little bit nervous too, but I think that combined with just like the time change really got to me. And so the morning of the race when I woke up, I was freaking out a little bit at first because I was like, I didn't sleep at all last night, I'm gonna be so tired. But then the weird part was, like, as soon as the gun went off and just the atmosphere at the race and the weather was perfect and everything, like I felt amazing from the gun. So yeah, so I ended up finishing Rotterdam in 5th overall, which was higher than I had expected going in. I think the whole time I tried to start out pretty conservatively. I knew I was in shape to break 2:30, but I didn't want to go out in like a, like low 2:29s or whatever pace, just because I really wanted to feel good towards the end. So I think like my first 5K actually in the race was my slowest, and this race was really like special looking back because I was constantly passing people the whole time, which is how I knew I raced it really smart. Like there was never a point in the race where I was getting, passed by tons of people or like falling behind or anything. I just was really strong the whole time. So I actually didn't end up running with like one group of people. I would run with, a couple like sub-elite men for a little bit, and then they would get tired and kind of fall off, and then I would go on to the next group. So I think I ended up negative splitting. I don't know by how much, but definitely I think I raced this really, really smart, so I was proud of myself for that.
Did you know, like, because it was a mass start, like, did you know what place you were in?
No, I had no idea. Like, the only thing I knew was what pace I was running, and I knew that I was gonna break. I think when I hit the half, like I felt good enough that I knew I was gonna break 2:30, and because I knew I was running that pace, I figured I would be in the top 10, but I didn't know I was gonna be 5th overall. And then I know I was top American, but I think Whitney and I were the only Americans, but I mean there were other Americans, but we were the only elite like people that would have been in the top 10, so.
I would say I just went off of the coach's recommendation on pace, and so that calculation I think was made for me, and I was given a pace window. With the course being so flat, I really tried to just hit those splits through each kilometer, which was quite often because in the US you have more wiggle room with only checking in per mile, but with the Ks every 3 minutes and 36 seconds, I could check in and see. I wasn't overly concerned if I was a little over or under, but I tried to check in there. And then at the 5Ks, that was a good time to get a more general split. So I really tried to stick to that and run with people for the first half. And then I tried to tune in more to how I was feeling then. But I did kind of work on those splits because with coaches telling me that I could confidently run that, I didn't want to think too hard about it. Tried not to think too much about how I was feeling until after that second half, and then dialed in. Yeah. The pretty large pack of men that I was running with started to disperse right after the half, going into like 25K, and the men I was trying to run behind ended up just running behind me for a while, and so that kind of fell apart a little bit in terms of drafting off people to avoid wind and assuming that the people around me were running a steady pace that I wanted to run, which was happening the first half. So that second half was tough for a few kilometers there while I tried to reassess how I was holding the pace on my own and having to gauge that. So between 26 or 27K and probably 40K, I was kind of trying to see how much I could get out of myself, but it was more challenging because there weren't other people to try to stick to exactly, but once you get through 25K and you only have less than half the race to go, I think that was more manageable mentally because I had spent less energy on that for those first several miles. So it was hard, but I think I left enough in the tank mentally to kind of engage that second half. So we conquered a lot of the big things that I had been worried about recently. So I don't need to be afraid of them next time.